which really attracts them. They've got an interesting profile, the way they sit. And if you look at this butterfly, it seems that the left wing and the right wing are completely different. You think, gosh, that's kind of weird, you know, it's not symmetrical. That's because it's in this weird position that's called jet planing, and this is typical of grass skippers. So this is the right forewing, this is the left hind wing, and then the left forewing is right here, and it's kind of perpendicular to us, so we don't see it. And then, of course, the right hind wing is hidden, so they do this jet planing. And some of those grass skippers, this little tiny thing, maybe less than half an inch spread out. Orange-head roadside skipper that's up in the mountains, again a grass feeder like the rest of the grass skippers, but again nectaring on different plants. The last group of skippers is the so-called giant skippers. There's two groups of those, or two genuses of them here. There's the yucca feeding, and they fly in the spring and summer, and then in this particular one, the yucca giant skippers, so you know what they eat. And then we have the other group of skippers that feed on agave. Again, when I say what it feeds on, that's what the caterpillars eat. None of these, well, mostly don't go to flowers. You never, very, very seldom do you see, sometimes you see the come to flower. But mostly what they do a lot, and the place to find them is along a kind of a wet area, and they're actually doing and sucking some water, but mainly they're trying to get minerals. And this is something called puddling, or mudding if it's in mud. It's usually males. Sometimes on a very hot day you can see females as well, just because they want the water. They're picking up minerals which they pass along to the female in the sperm packet, and a lot of butterflies do this. Okay, let's go back to our butterfly families. We'll talk about the true butterflies. The swallowtails, we saw a two-tailed before. These are a couple of two-tailed swallowtails that are coming down to mud, and these are males to pick up the minerals that they're going to pass on to the female. There's also a little sleeping orange there on the side trying to get out of the way of these big things. But the swallowtails love a lot of nectar plants. They love thistles, and so you can usually find them when you find some good nectar plant to look for them. And of course they pollinate them as they're doing that. When we're talking about the two-tailed swallowtail, I kind of go through the life cycle. This is complete metamorphosis, so it means that there's two different forms in its life. The female lays an egg. Usually it's on the food plant, the host plant. Sometimes it's on the ground near there. The caterpillar, again, we said is the larvae. It's the eating and growing stage. And the caterpillar eats until it fills up its body, sheds its skin, gets another body, another baggy skin, fills that up. You may do this 4 or 5 times, sometimes 6. And those are called instars. Molts is a word that you might be more familiar with. And then finally, after it gets as big as it's going to get, it loses its skin one more time, and there's the pupa underneath, or chrysalis is another thing. And that's where the metamorphosis takes place. The metamorphosis is interesting. The caterpillar just doesn't grow legs, long legs and wings and stuff like that. It actually kind of turns into a nutrient soup. There's some cells in there that are like stem cells, and it forms a whole new creature from scratch using the nutrients that the caterpillar is eating. Kind of cool. So here's the two-tailed swallowtail. Although they'll use a lot of flowers to nectar on, they'll only use some of these broadleaf deciduous trees that are along our riparian areas. And in this particular case, it's a velvet ash, lays an egg. The caterpillar is a 2nd and 3rd instar, and they look like bird poop. And they look wet like bird poop, and so hopefully a bird won't want to eat bird poop, and they're safe that way. When they get a little bigger, that bird poop thing doesn't work, and the swallowtails do something which is kind of cool. A lot of them, they almost look like snakes if you look at them straight on, but they've got these false eyes on the top. You can see only one of the eyes here and the other one's over here. This is really the head of the eating part of the caterpillar. Then when they're ready to pupate, they start wandering around. This is one that my wife raised in our house from the egg. And it started to wander around the container and wander, kind of turned this rusty brick red, just kept walking and walking. And then finally we put several sticks in it. After about a day it became very happy. It climbed up the stick, put on this little silk girdle that held it in place, stuck its abdomen down there, and then the skin split, and you were left with this pupa that looks kind of like a little broken off branch. Pipevine swallowtail, which somebody mentioned.
It's right outside the door here.
Pipevine swallowtail, anybody want to guess what it feeds on? Yeah, pipevine. And this is very typical. This is a mated pair. The female, of course, is the one with the larger abdomen. They sometimes have they're a little bigger, sometimes they have bigger wings because they've got to carry all of the eggs. This is the caterpillar of the pipevine swallowtail. If you know anything about pipevine, it's got some oils in it that make people sick, and it was the oils were used as snake oil, and it was a purgative, and so people get, I guess, thrown up with that, and then they think whatever they had, they forgot all about, and it was snake oil was worse. Anyway, these caterpillars eat these leaves, and they're not hurt by and they can sequester it, and so they're distasteful to birds and other creatures, and so they're saying, hey, don't eat me, I'm orange, and that means bad. This is an aposematic color. And so the bird may eat one of them, and then he says, I'm never touching that orange stuff again, forget it, that's worse than broccoli. Another one of our swallowtails that's common around here is the giant swallowtail. We see it here. The butterfly lays its eggs on citrus, and so citrus farmers don't particularly like this butterfly. Another family is the whites and the sulfurs, and this is the Chiricahua white. This is one that lives up in the mountains and lays its eggs. The female lays its eggs on pine needles, and so that's what its food plant is. But it comes to a lot of different flowers, and this is the female. Female, very different looking. Here's a female and a male, and the female, the guess is they kind of look like a monarch, so they're probably a mimic of a monarch or a queen, and that gives them protection. They're not eaten. The males aren't as important as the female, and you don't want a whole bunch of mimics around, because if a bird eats something, you want them to most of the time remember that it tastes bad. So the males, which are expendable, don't get that color. Another one of the whites, and we'll start seeing those very shortly, maybe the next warm period, are the Sarah orange tips. They come out and they eat the spring blooming mustard, some annuals and some perennials. Again, they nectar on a lot of different stuff. In this case, it's one of the so-called popcorn flowers. This is a female Sarah orange tip, and you can see she's nectaring on a little flower, and that's a rock cress, and it's an early, a late winter, early spring bloomer here, and that's when they come out, because they lay their eggs on the and here and then here. They usually lay their eggs closer to the flower, because the first couple of instars of the caterpillar eat the flowers and the flower buds, and they get a little bigger, then come down and eat the leaves. And, those were some of the whites. We have the sulfurs, the southern dog faces one, and of course it's called a dog face. Good imagination, I guess, with this eye and this nose, which you can see better from the top. It looks kind of like a poodle. I took this picture with the light coming through it so you could see it. Again, you'll notice the nectaring on one of our local sunflower species. Here's a sleeping orange. The sleeping orange and the next species feed on senna. Again, as a caterpillar, as you can see in this thing, he's nectaring around 4 o'clock. This cloudless sulfur, again, eats senna. But it's feeding on a thistle, or it's nectaring on a thistle. This is the caterpillar of the sleeping orange. It's green and it eats the leaves. And there's when it gets big, just before it's about to pupate, again, then it eats the leaves whole. Whereas this, several pictures of a bright yellow cloudless sulfur is up in the flowers, and so they partition the plant. It eats the flowers and the other one eats the leaves, and it's yellow, so it blends in. Pretty tricky. And I just like this picture. This is the pupas of several cloudless sulfurs, and this one is about to emerge. You can start to see that through Gossamer wing. Gossamer wings are the very small butterflies and probably the most